Story 1. We had many dogs. One of our older dogs walked into the living room where all the best spots were taken. The old dog barked to alert us and ran toward the door. The other dogs, sleeping, jumped up and followed her to the door. Meanwhile, the old dog simply walked over to the best spot and lay down. I thought she was quite clever. Story 2. I was trying to get an appointment to see a specialist because I had been in pain for over a month. I was on the phone with the receptionist, and she said the next available appointment was 3 months away. I was speechless, imagining being in pain for 3 more months. My calm dog walked up to me, whined, and then walked away. He had never done that before, and he has not done it since. The receptionist said, "Oh, I know you're hurting. Let me see what I can do." She put me on hold and then came back to tell me she had scheduled a phone call with the specialist, not an appointment, just a phone call that week. After that phone call, the specialist scheduled me for surgery 2 weeks later. My dog saved me from months of agony. Story 3. I have raised dozens of cats, but there was one, a female orange tabby, who was very spicy yet incredibly intelligent. She would alert us when the food or water bowls were getting low rather than empty. She could count how many cans of cat food were in the house and would demand our attention daily until they were all gone. She tried to hold conversations, which often turned into arguments, and she displayed emotions like jealousy and spite. One time, my husband and I did something that upset her. She jumped on the countertops, made sure we were watching, and peed all over the cookies we had made for a family member. She was not allowed on the kitchen countertops, and she had never done anything like that before or after. That was the clearest act of defiance I have ever seen from an animal. Another interesting thing about her was that she loved music and had very strong opinions about it. One day we were playing a video game, and my husband had the game select random songs, which included a song by Nickelback. He was on the microphone, and she started screeching and attacking him when he sang. We then began testing other songs and discovered that she became irrationally angry every time a Nickelback song played. After a while, we could summon her from anywhere by saying, "Look at this photograph." We once took her out on the leash and led her several blocks just by singing that. It became a hilarious joke in our household. She passed away earlier this year but was truly the best. Once I won her over, her love was just as intense as her rage. I like to think all of her attitude was because she was too smart for her little kitty body and that she has earned transcendence into a higher form. But now, hearing Nickelback makes us cry, so there's that. Story 4. My cat randomly decided to make puking sounds every morning to wake me up for breakfast. I would hear it, run out, and he would just stop and meow like, "Well, since you're up." He only did it for about 2 weeks. He always changed how he would wake me up. For a short while, he would gently place his paws over my eyes or use one claw to poke my side. He never let me get used to anything. Story 5. One of my cats was a huge snuggler. He wanted to be held like a teddy bear in bed and was very affectionate. His brother, however, preferred love on his own terms. Sadly, the affectionate one passed away. Before that happened, I told my other cat to say goodbye. He gently put his snout in the other cat's ear, as if whispering something to him, gave him a headbutt, then walked away. When I returned from the veterinary clinic, he started acting just like the affectionate one immediately. It was remarkable. Story 6. My dog died suddenly, and my partner's dog had not interacted much with me. That night, for the first time since we moved to Texas 5 years earlier, he jumped on my lap and snuggled in the crook of my arm. I was shocked, but upon reflecting, the dog must have known. Story 7. I call the cat tree Scratchy Bed. One of my cats was scratching my chair. I said, "No scratching my chair, use the scratchy bed." And he immediately stopped, walked over to the cat tree, and then continued scratching. Story 8. My cat never left my bedside when I was sick with food poisoning, not even going downstairs to eat. Once, when I had a nightmare and woke up in tears, he licked them off my face, curled up next to my head, and started purring soothingly in my ear. When my mother stopped breathing and went to the hospital for the last time, after a week of tests, we had to decide to take her off life support as she was now brain dead. The day before, I heard a strange cry from my cat, went running to him, and found him with his head thrown back like a wolf, making a long, low, mournful howling noise. It gave me chills and brought tears to my eyes. It was the sound of grief. I think he picked up on our emotions, but my baby knew Grandma wasn't coming home. He was such a smart cat. Rest in peace, my sweet boy. Story 9. I have a rescue parrot. I adopted him in December of 2011. Less than a year after I got him, we were home alone. My husband was at work late, and it was already dark outside. My parrot was perched on a cat hammock that was attached to the windowsill next to the front door. The blinds on that window were raised about 4 inches so the cats could see outside. The porch light wasn't on. We were just relaxing when my doorknob started rattling, as if someone was trying to open it. I saw denim-clad legs illuminated by a flashlight beam through the window. I jumped up, flipped on the porch light, and loudly asked, "Who's there?" A male voice responded, "FedEx, ma'am." And I asked, "Who?" There was no answer. Eventually, I opened the door, but no one was there and, of course, no package. My parrot stayed up hours past his bedtime. He would not move from that spot and just watched out the window. Suddenly, he asked to go to bed. I took him to his room. About the time I walked out of his room, my husband walked into the house. I swear that bird stayed up until he knew it was safe, and he waited until he was certain. Story 10. My lab started barking at the fence, and I could not get him to stop. I looked over the fence and saw the man next door was on the ground, so I called emergency services. He went to the hospital, and I found out from his wife that he had a heart attack but survived. Now he gives my dog treats when he sees him. Story 11. My dog was fed every day at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. She would never beg or ask for food until those times. One day I ran out of food during breakfast, and she watched me throw away the bag. That night, she started asking for dinner at 5 p.m., leaving me an hour to get to the store for more dog food before her dinner time at 6 p.m. Story 12. I had 2 dogs many years ago. The older dog was the grandmother of the younger one. One day, while we were doing some light renovation on the house, one of the doors was left open, and the younger dog ran out. Everyone panicked, trying to find him, but we had no success. In our haste, we didn't pay attention to the other dog, and she left the house as well. Just as we noticed her missing, we saw her coming back down the street with the little one following her. In summary, the grandmother dog did what grandmothers do. Story 13. I kept sleeping through my alarms and couldn't figure out how. I'm not typically a heavy sleeper, but for about a week, I kept missing them. Then, just by chance, I woke up just before my alarm was supposed to go off. I watched my cat, who sleeps next to me, get up a minute later and stare at my phone. As soon as the alarm started ringing, she began swiping at my phone until it shut off, then walked back, curled up, and went back to sleep. She figured out how to turn my alarm off and came prepared. Story 14. One of my cat's radio frequency identification chip-activated food bowls ran out of batteries. She turned her head towards the ceiling and tried tapping the back of her neck on the food bowl, as if she knew she had a chip, where it was, and that it activated her food bowl. She was about 4 years old at the time and was already chipped when I got her at 7 months old. Story 15. My cat confirmed that I had a heart issue. I had come home early due to severe and prolonged heart palpitations. When I laid down, she immediately rested on my chest, which she never does, and started tapping my chest and throat where I was feeling the palpitations. For several minutes, she went back and forth between tapping my heart and my throat, while also getting up and nudging my face every time I was about to faint. That convinced me to go to the hospital. It was a good thing I did because they said it was close to turning into a full heart attack if I hadn't received treatment. Story 16. I had 2 dogs, a Chihuahua and a Labrador. One day, the Labrador ran to the back door and started barking loudly. I got up to investigate, and the Chihuahua snatched my pizza off my dinner plate and bolted. I chased her down and found her and the Labrador sharing the pizza. There was nobody at the back door. Story 17. My pig, Pumpkin, was enjoying a hot summer day when I watched her take a drink from her water bowl and make a face. She then nudged the bowl with her snout into the shade. It amazed me that she understood the sun was heating her water and that the shade would cool it down. She was a very smart girl. She knew commands like sit, lie down, wait, spin, paw, and get your toy, and I taught her none of them. While training my dog outside on one of those nice days, I gave the command for spin, and to my surprise, Pumpkin turned herself around. After further investigation and many treats, I discovered she had learned pretty much everything. Story 18. I told my dog to get a stick. She took it from the person standing next to me. It was the closest one. When I want to go home from the beach, if I don't explain why, she doesn't want to leave. She tried to get me to play with her in some ivy, but I fell. She felt so bad that she retrieved the stick she had gotten bored of, which is why she encouraged me to play in the ivy, helped me up, and played stick with me. Story 19. He kept waking me up as if he wanted to go out. It was pouring rain, so I wasn't too eager. He finally stood at the foot of the bed, looking down the hall. Since I hadn't seen him do this before, I figured it was urgent. I got up, dressed, and put the leash on him. When I opened the door, I could smell smoke. I told my partner that someone's house was on fire. When I turned on the porch light, I discovered it was our house. I called the fire department, and they responded quickly, getting the fire out with little damage to our home. The puppy received steak and eggs for breakfast. Had he not woken us up, we probably would not have survived. Story 20. My elderly mother moved in with me, and my dog claimed her as his. He stayed close to her, even sleeping with her. One evening, I was watching television when the dog came running up to me, barking. I thought it was funny to say, "What's wrong, boy? Is Timmy down a well?" I had a chuckle, and then it hit me. My mother. I got up and quickly followed my dog to where my mother was on the floor after having fallen. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt, but she couldn't get up on her own. Even now, over 4 years since she passed, if I say grandma, my dog's ears perk up, and he looks toward where her bedroom was. Story 21. It took me a long time to figure out how my 40-pound dog was able to steal a loaf of bread from the back of the stove. Then one day he showed me. He stood on his hind legs, opened the oven door with his paw, climbed on top of the door, balanced like a circus dog, grabbed the bread in his mouth, dismounted, and then closed the door. Thank goodness he never figured out how to open the fridge. Story 22. My cat understands English. He was making a noise in the kitchen, and we were getting upset because we were irritable from something else. We all got up and went to the kitchen and asked, "All right, what is it? Tell us what you want." I don't know what we expected, but he paused for a moment, then walked out and led us to his empty food bowl in the other room. We asked, and he answered. He's a very intelligent cat. It can be impressive sometimes. Story 23. Our puppy, a Catahoula leopard dog, has figured out how to trade for things. She brings over a toy or chew bone and tries to trade it for a bite of whatever you're eating. If she likes it, she'll go get more toys to trade. She does this with our other dog as well, and it works. She has a deep sense of fairness and sharing, which is unusual for a dog. Story 24. I have multiple sclerosis. One day, I was in my tub and I felt dizzy and shaky. I called my dog and she came right away. I told her to stay still. I pulled myself out of that tub with her help. It was awful. After that day, I could never go in that tub without her. She always followed me and lay on the mat, ready to help me. That was a great dog. Story 25. My mini dachshund would always inform on his younger sister if she misbehaved. It was very helpful if she had an accident in the house that was concealed. He was quite the tattletale. Story 26. I had a cat that I had to put on a diet, and he got angry about it. He climbed on top of the refrigerator where I kept the treats and knocked the entire box onto the floor. It spilled everywhere, and he hopped down and started eating. I was too impressed to be angry. Story 27. My sister's house was very chaotic with kids, busy schedules, and all sorts of things. Her dog would spend time in the kitchen in the evenings, and whenever someone entered, he would look sadly at his empty bowl, then at the person, and back to his bowl until he was fed his forgotten dinner. One day, they realized that he was getting 3 or 4 dinners a night. Story 28. I had a cat that loved to pick things up and move them around, which led me to believe he was organized. I thought that was silly. One night, I left a large Starburst bag open on my desk, and when I woke up, he had knocked the bag to the ground and organized the pieces by color in neat piles. It was bizarre. Story 29. My dog once stole a sandwich off the table when I left the room. When I returned, she was in the corner looking sheepish. The sandwich was untouched on the floor. I said, "Baby Bree, did you do this?" She had never stolen anything before. She squinted her eyes tightly, put her paw up directly in front of her face as if to hide herself from my gaze. She was saying, "I'm sorry, Dad. I realized what I was doing was wrong, and I stopped." Maybe it's not raw processing power, but that's some higher level thinking going on there, beyond the limbic system. I gave her all of the sandwich and got myself another. Story 30. I have a shepherd mix who is 6 years old, and she amazes me every day. Naturally, I think of her as my child, but I genuinely feel like she understands everything I say to her. I recently bought her a new bed and got a new couch, which she is not allowed on. One morning, I caught her curled up on the couch. I looked at her and said, "You are not allowed on this couch. Go lie in your bed." And she immediately got off the couch and went to her bed. She also grunted and sighed loudly, as if she was annoyed by my request. I thought it was hilarious. There was another instance when she ate the candy I left on the table. As I searched for it, I asked her, "Do you know who ate my candy?" Her ears went back, and she wore the saddest expression on her face. She then went and hid from me. Dogs are amazing creatures, and I absolutely love my sassy girl. Story 31. I had a hamster who would go to the water bottle, tap the metal ball a few times to get his paw wet, and then he'd slick back the hair on his head. He would do this after being petted. He also figured out how to make noise by banging the door of his cage to get my attention, and once he knew I was nearby, he would run in circles around the things he considered a problem, like if the hamster wheel toppled over or his seed bowl or veggie bowl was empty. Rest in peace, Hamlet. I miss you, you feisty little companion. Story 32. I had a dog who learned how to open the refrigerator. It took her 2 days to learn how to unlock the dog-proof trash can. She knew how to roll the car window down. She was an absolute terror. Story 33. I see some stories here about pets alerting their owners to people in trouble. My white cat once informed me when he was sick. He came into the bedroom as I was getting ready for work and squatted on the carpet as if he was going to urinate. I picked him up and placed him in the mudroom where the litter boxes were. Then I thought about it. He never used the floor, and this behavior was very unusual for him. I checked the litter box. He hadn't used it. I looked and found him in the basement pressing his belly against the concrete floor. I rushed to the emergency veterinarian. He had a blocked urethra and likely would have died without surgery. He was 2 then and is 14 now. I would say he has a higher emotional quotient than intelligence quotient overall. Story 34. My husband and I were visiting our daughter and her boyfriend in another city. They had recently rescued a dog that we were meeting for the first time. When we were leaving, our daughter called for a group hug. Without any encouragement, the new furry family member stood on his hind legs and joined in. We were all amazed. Story 35. I had a dog, and occasionally I would accidentally hurt him by stepping on his paws. I would feel bad and give him a treat as compensation. He noticed this and started pretending to be hurt in an attempt to get treats. If my feet came anywhere near his paws, he would whine and then stand in front of the fridge, waiting for his treat. I had no idea dogs were capable of that kind of deception. Story 36. I was babysitting my child's cat. He was maybe 2 years old at the time. The cat, not the child. I was trying to get things done, and he just kept getting into things and being mischievous. He would intentionally get in front of me, knocking things over or undoing what I had already done. He seemed to enjoy the attention this was giving him, as I was focused on other tasks. It was somewhat amusing, but after a while it became a bit annoying. My cat, female, 12 years old, followed me around like a shadow and had been with me all morning. supervising my activities. I guess I raised my voice at my grandkitty one too many times, because after my last exclamation, she jumped out from behind me and put him in his place. It was a pretty good, albeit harmless, reprimand, and he did start to mind his manners for the next few hours. I had no idea that my mild frustration really had an impact on my cat. Moreover, I was unaware that cats can regulate each other's behavior when they are being a bit troublesome. Story 37. My sister and her husband used to have a parrot. My sister is usually a lovely person, but when she gets hypoglycemia, she starts to get cranky. We tell her to have a soda, and then she becomes cheerful again. The parrot learned about the sodas. Whenever she started to get upset, he made sounds like a soda can opening, such as crack and fizz. Story 38. One day at work, I checked on my dog using the puppy cam. He had pooped on the floor, which he never did, and I caught him dragging a throw blanket from the couch to cover it up. I couldn't be mad. I was just so proud. Story 39. All these answers are amazing. My dog is a Shiba Inu and pretty nonchalant about everything. So much so that I've questioned his intelligence at times. That was until one evening when I was having a sandwich, lying in bed, watching a movie on my tablet. As always, he jumped right next to me and started pawing at me to give him a little bit. As usual, I ignored him. Then he went and sat at my feet, seemingly forgetting about the sandwich and falling asleep. I was halfway done with the sandwich when I put it on my bedside table to go to the kitchen and grab a drink. I stood up and warned him not to go anywhere near my sandwich. I left the room but returned quickly to catch him in the act. Not only had he not moved an inch, but as soon as he saw me, he got down from the bed and followed me to the kitchen. I thought, okay, nice, good dog. He lay down on the threshold of the kitchen, as he usually does when I'm in there, and just stared at me. As soon as I turned my back to him, he bolted to my bedroom and grabbed the sandwich. I was impressed, to say the least. Story 40. I have a golden retriever. I had knee surgery 3 years ago that turned out terribly. I will never walk normally and am in pain. I am permanently disabled. My dog, Rue, trained herself to be my service dog during my last 3 years of rehabilitation. She stays close to my side to prevent me from falling and follows me up and down each step. If I tell her to stay while I go downstairs, she will sit at the top of the stairs, waiting for my return. She ensures that I am in bed for the night before she sleeps. She will not go to sleep until I do. During my painful exercises, she has been on the floor trying to do them with me, beside me. It used to bother me that she wouldn't give me space until I realized she was preventing me from falling. No one in my life cares about me that much. Story 41. When my dog was spayed at the veterinarian, the staff said she somehow escaped into the lobby and was greeted by them the next morning. Story 42. I talked to my dog politely like a child. I had no idea until a friend pointed it out. She seems to understand what "excuse me" means and leaves the room when I say it. I just want her to get out of my way. But she has created her own space completely out of the way without me teaching her anything like that. Story 43. One night, I left a napkin with brownie crumbs on the floor next to my bed for my cat to eat. In the morning, I awoke to find she had left her toy mouse next to the napkin for me. Once, I was feeling incredibly nauseous. While I lay on the couch, my cat came up and kneaded my tummy, which she usually does not do. She knew I was ill. Cats do care. Story 44. My nephew's elderly chihuahua ran off into the woods, presumably to die. He searched for her for a couple of hours and then called my husband and me to help look for her. We brought our dog with us, and within just a few minutes, she found the chihuahua. Our dog Betty was a hero that day. The chihuahua passed away a few days later in her bed by the fire, surrounded by her loved ones. Story 45. I fell asleep and didn't turn off my oven broiler. My cat, Ace, woke me up by tapping me on the head. As soon as I woke up, I smelled it. Ace is a hero. Story 46. Several years ago, I lived in an apartment with my ex who was deep in his addiction and my Shiba Inu. The dog was a bolter and would dart outside whenever the opportunity presented itself. She was not the type that could ever be off-leash. One day, I came home and my heart sank when the front door was wide open. I assumed she was long gone or possibly hurt somewhere. When I got inside, I saw my ex passed out on the living room floor, covered in liquid. He later said he fell in the lake, but I assumed he urinated on himself. The oven was on and smoking. He had been baking a pizza, which was burnt to a crisp. My dog was sitting like a statue in the entryway, just waiting for me. I swear she knew this was not a good situation and decided to stay put to wait for me. The wave of relief I felt when I knew she was safe cannot be described. Story 47. Our female bunny had cataracts and was blind, and we recently lost her companion. I looked for an older male bunny to keep her company and to help heal our hearts, and I found a very cool personality. I was tapping on the floor, calling for her to come to me, but she wasn't sure where I was and was searching for me. He noticed her, nudged her, and guided her to my location. He is a very special boy. Story 48. One of our dogs, a stray from a shelter, was the smartest dog I had ever seen. One day, we came home to find the refrigerator door open, the meat drawer open, and bits of plastic scattered around. Both dogs had enjoyed the meats and cheeses. The first time this happened, we thought the fridge door had been left cracked open by mistake. However, it happened again. The clever dog had figured out how to open the fridge door and the inner drawer. We had to install a child lock on it. Story 49. We were watching a movie in the lounge, and it was reaching the really exciting edge of your seat part when the cat decided it was time to go outside. She started meowing until I yelled at her to be quiet. She ran up the hallway, and 5 seconds later, we heard a meow over the baby monitor. She had gone into our room where the baby was sleeping. Of course, I didn't want her to wake the baby up, so she got what she wanted. Story 50. I lived in a rural area. The dog returned without her visibility vest. She quietly barked at me and tossed her head in the direction of the road. I followed her for 40 yards and thought it was foolish to do so. I turned around to go back home, but she quietly barked at me again and gestured toward the direction we were originally heading. After another 2 to 3 minute walk, I found her vest caught on the bottom strand of a barbed wire fence. Her vest is oversized so she can wiggle out if needed. Story 51. My sister and I, aged 11 and 10, were home alone with instructions not to open the door for anyone. A man with a clipboard rang the doorbell. My sister opened the door and informed him that our parents weren't home. He claimed to be a meter reader and said he needed to see the meter outside, as he couldn't access it from the front of the house. My sister told him to drive around back, and she would open the back gate for him. The whole time, I was panicking and telling her this was a bad idea, but she wasn't listening. At that point, both the front and back doors were unlocked and ajar, and the back gate was open. My sister was outside with the meter reader. Our family's boxer, Rudy, burst through the basement door, ran out the back door to the porch, and bit the meter reader's arm like a trained police dog. I had never seen him act like that before. I rushed out after him and yelled for him to go back inside, which he did without hesitation or aggression. My sister got the man a hand towel for the blood, and he left. I'm unsure if the man had bad intentions or not. All I can say is I had never seen Rudy behave that way before, and he never did again. He body slammed a closed door and ran outside to bite a man just once. My sister and I were in trouble when our parents got home. I don't remember what punishment we received or what happened to the man. I don't think there was any lawsuit. Rest in peace, Rudy. Maybe you protected us that day. Story 52. One time, my dog grabbed a beer from the pond and dropped it at my feet. I have no idea why, and he never did it again. Story 53. My orange cat knocked over a security camera, and I yelled. Without missing a beat, he then used his paw to set it upright. He is the smartest cat I have ever had. Story 54. My old dog would bring me her leash and a bag to clean up after her whenever I asked if she wanted to go for a walk. I miss you, princess. Story 55. A long time ago, a cat I used to have taught himself to use the toilet. I grew up in a house with all females except my dad and would always get mad at him for not flushing the toilet. One day, when I was home alone, I heard someone using the toilet, as my room was right beside it, and I caught our cat straddling the toilet and peeing. We live in Canada, and it can get extremely cold in the winter, so he didn't want to go outside and wouldn't use his litter box much. Story 56. My cat would recognize when I wasn't feeling well and would snuggle up to me during those times. The main problem was that I eventually realized I always felt fine at school but bad at home. I developed a cat allergy during puberty, so my cat snuggling up to me made it worse. Story 57. My late cat would jump off the bed to vomit. He was intelligent. He could open doors and climb under those he couldn't open. Despite being a 20-pound Maine Coon mix, he enjoyed being part of everything without being too intrusive, as long as he received attention. His understudy gets confused trying to go through the wrong side of open doors. Story 58. I had a cat who, like all cats, waited impatiently for me to get up in the morning and feed him. I would hit the snooze on the clock radio alarm several times until he learned to hit the button that turned on the music. He knew that would get me up, so he did it every morning. Another cat could open doors with doorknobs. Actual knobs. Story 59. My eldest cat has detected breast cancer twice. If she becomes very attached to a specific side of your chest, it is time to get a mammogram. I love her. Story 60. I had a dog who loved sleeping in my mom's favorite spot on the couch. If she was still awake when he wanted to go to bed, he would go into the kitchen and bark as if his water bowl was empty. As soon as my mom got up to fill it, he would race past her and curl up on the couch as if he had been there all along. Story 61. Mind you, the bar is pretty low because my dog was not that smart in general. Sometimes we would leave the house and come back home, only to suspect that the dining room chairs had been pulled away from the table. Our dog was small, about 28 pounds, but we have old, heavy wooden chairs, so it was a bit surprising. We decided to ensure that all the chairs were pushed in when we left, and sure enough, the dog was pulling them out from under the table. There was also evidence that he got up onto the actual table, with things moved around haphazardly. I suspect he was looking for free snacks since he knew that was where we ate. Story 62. I was home alone watching my family's two dogs. One was always right by my side, while the other liked to sleep by himself. I couldn't find the dog that preferred to be alone, so I asked the other one, "Where's your brother?" And he led me to where the other dog was sleeping. He had never been taught that, and it amazed me that he knew exactly what I was asking. Story 63. We live in an apartment, and unfortunately, my German Shepherd cannot go in and out freely to potty. When we are not home and my dog has an emergency, she goes in the bathtub, which makes for easy cleanup. I never taught her this, but I really appreciate it. I love my smart girl. Story 64. I had siblings from a litter of half Labrador Retriever and half Weimaraner puppies. The boy was the second largest and, when he was fully grown, weighed about 130 pounds. The girl was the runt but still weighed around 70 pounds. She was the brains of the operation and he was the muscle. They would get out of the yard by her flipping up the fork latch with her nose, and he would push it open. I had to start chaining the gate closed. She also figured out how to open the doors inside the house just so they could lie on the bed while I was at work. I ended up changing the knobs from the scroll type to round knobs, but then decided to leave them open so they could have the bed while I was gone anyway. Story 65. My brother has been working at my house. He locked the door and hid the key under one of the dog dishes. When I came home, I was fumbling in my bag trying to locate my own key. My female Chihuahua, very clever and observant, purposefully went over and nudged the dog dish to reveal the other key, as if to say, "Hey, use this one." Story 66. When my sister-in-law lived with us, she had a dog. I have been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis for 24 years, and her dog entered my bedroom, which it usually did not, put its paws on the bed, and gently pawed at my hips. The next morning, I woke up and realized it had settled in my hips, making it difficult for me to walk. It was astounding. Story 67. We were dog sitting, and I couldn't get the guest dog into the house. My dog barked, and he put his tail between his legs and came in. My cat unzipped my backpack, pulled out the treats, and took them behind the door to try to open them. How did he smell the closed bag? I had never put treats in my bag. I watched him unzip my backpack in amazement. Story 68. My first cat was really smart. One day we were fixing the floor, and he kept getting in our way. So I put him in a corner and sternly told him to sit. He did and stayed there for 2 hours. Story 69. He was very frightened on his first evening with us. He drank bowl after bowl of water. When I hadn't noticed the bowl was empty again, he brought the empty bowl to me and dropped it at my feet. Story 70. When my whippet discovers that his sister, a Boston Terrier, has taken her place on the couch, he will entice her to play. Then, when she jumps down, he quickly returns to his spot on the couch. Story 71. My cat used to get the neighbor when he wanted to be let inside and we were not home. Clever little cat. Story 72. My previous dog loved chasing tennis balls. For Christmas, we gave him a bag of them. He immediately figured out how to pinch and pull the clip on the bag to get the balls out. Story 73. Cat figured out how to reach up and open the doors in the new apartment. The only thing keeping him out of the bathroom is that the door sticks terribly. Story 74. My cat was stuck in his playpen for 3 weeks while recovering from a broken bone. He learned to unzip it. Within 1 minute, he could reliably escape. We even captured video evidence. Story 75. I wish I had a dog, but I do have a long list of amusing things my dog did. He once got away from me during a walk and ran into a stopped car. The elderly lady driving got out to check if he was okay, and I said, "Yeah, he's fine, just a bit of an idiot." He ran back to me and wouldn't even make eye contact, as if he were embarrassed. Story 76. My American Bulldog was able to detect a panic attack that my little cousin was about to have. She got our attention, and we were able to reach my cousin quickly. Story 77. Our cat discovered that if she laid on top of the alarm clock, we couldn't reach the snooze button, so we would get up sooner to feed her. Story 78. My grandma was my dog's favorite person. Not long before she passed away, she was in a nursing home, and we went to visit her. My dog was a very friendly and gentle boy, so we stopped to see any residents who wanted to meet him. I had never been there before and didn't know where my grandma was. Walking down a hallway and meeting people, he stopped in front of a closed door. Then he sat down, stared at the door and whined. He knew where his favorite human was, and I had no idea. Yes, he probably smelled her, but the smells and chaos of a nursing home provided a lot of distractions to sniff through. Story 79. I was talking to my leopard gecko, Snow, while wearing a baseball cap. He turned his head sideways, as if to ask, "Mom, is that you?" I took the hat off and he looked at it, then at me. I put it back on and he took a step back. The next time I wore a hat, there were no issues. He completely learned what a hat is. We had to repeat the lesson when I was fresh out of the shower with a towel on my head. Story 80. This was years ago, but my cat was sneaking out without me realizing it for months. I live in a unique space, and my cat would play and hide beneath these steps as part of my area. It turns out there was a hole that led outside, allowing her to come and go when she felt like it, especially at night when I was sleeping. I wondered why her litter box was empty every other day, yet she would still use it from time to time. Of course, she always made sure to be back inside on time for meals in the morning, so I wouldn't suspect she was gone. One day, while I was at work, my landlord texted me to ask if I had let my cat out. We figured out where the hole was, and we had to block it for her safety. I have always kept her as an indoor cat. Let's just say my cat gave me quite the glare when she saw me block that hole. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.